Imagine a woman who gave up her dignity to save thousands from hunger and poverty. A story so shocking it's been whispered about for nearly 1,000 years. A noble woman who made a choice that shook all of medieval England. Today, we're traveling back to the dark heart of the 11th century, an age of bloodshed, civil war, and ruthless power, to tell the story of Lady Godiva, a woman whose name became a lasting symbol of sacrifice and a mother's love for her people. The 11th century was a brutal time in England. Human life had little value. Danish invaders, led by Sven Forkbeard and his son Canute, struck the English coast like a violent storm. They burned cities, slaughtered men, and enslaved women and children. Entire villages were wiped from the map. Rich farmlands were reduced to ashes. When the Danes finally withdrew, they left behind a broken land. Famine claimed as many lives as war. Trade routes were gone, crafts and skills forgotten. The population had been cut down to a fraction. The few who survived hid deep in the forests or clung to the walls of crumbling fortresses. In this chaos, power fell into the hands of local warlords, men strong enough to gather warriors and defend their own. One of the most feared was Leofric, Earl of Mercia, a man as cruel as he was calculating, with no pity for the weak. Leofric had risen from a common soldier to one of the most powerful lords in England. In his youth, he fought for the Danish king Canute, spilling the blood of his own countrymen for gold and glory. That loyalty earned him the title of Earl, and with it, control over Mercia, a vast kingdom in the heart of England. His castle towered over Coventry, a fortress of stone built to dominate. Thick walls, high towers, deep moats, everything designed to send a message: the people belonged to him. Gibbets lined the courtyard. Heads of rebels hung from the gates, a constant reminder of who ruled this land. Leofric ruled not just the land, but the hearts and minds of the people. He knew that after the horrors of war, the people would accept any tyranny, as long as it meant peace. And he used that fear without mercy. The taxes he imposed were brutal. Peasants didn't just give up half their harvest. In bad years, they had to hand over the grain meant for their own children. Families lived on the edge of survival, scraping by on roots and weeds. Craftsmen gave up most of what they made. Blacksmiths forged weapons for Leofric's army and were paid almost nothing. Weavers worked day and night, spinning fine cloth for the earl's trade, yet wore rags themselves. But the worst were the special taxes. Have a baby boy? Pay the joy tax. Lose your father? Pay the grief tax. Harvest your crops? That's the prosperity tax. A drought ruined your fields? Pay the misfortune tax. After all, someone had to cover the earl's losses. People sold everything they had. First their jewelry and family heirlooms, then their tools and livestock. Next came their clothes, their dishes. In the end, some sold their own children into slavery just to stay afloat. Children died of hunger in their mother's arms. The elderly froze to death in winter with no firewood and no warm clothes. Whole families were wiped out by disease, spreading through a starving, broken population. But Leofric didn't care. He had only one goal: to fill his treasury. Gold to pay his mercenaries, silver to bribe neighboring lords, jewels to trade with foreign merchants. Other people's suffering meant nothing to him. He threw lavish feasts, all paid for with blood money. Guests marveled at the abundance: golden roasted swans, whole deer cooked over open flames, barrels of fine French wine. Meanwhile, under the castle walls, the people dug through trash, hoping to find scraps. And yet, in this brutal world of cruelty and injustice, where the strong devoured the weak without a second thought, there lived a woman unlike any other. Her name was Godiva, and she was everything her husband was not. Godiva came from an old Anglo-Saxon lineage, one that had ruled these lands long before the Danes arrived. Her ancestors were known for fairness and compassion. Perhaps that legacy shaped her, made her stand apart from the ruthless lords of her time. She was a woman of striking beauty, tall, graceful, with golden hair that flowed all the way to the ground. But even her beauty paled next to the kindness in her heart. In an age when noble women saw peasants as little more than talking animals, Godiva saw human beings. She saw pain. She saw dignity. She saw people worth saving. Every morning she awoke to the sound of weeping beyond the castle walls, mothers mourning dead children, fathers breaking down in despair, unable to feed their families, elders begging for mercy at the gates. Those cries tore at her soul. Quietly, without drawing attention, she gave away her jewelry to those in need. She shared food from her own table with starving children. She paid for the sick to be treated when no one else could. But her kindness was like a drop in a sea of suffering, suffering created by the man she had married. Godiva tried to make Leofric see what he was doing. She brought him to the cottages where families were dying of hunger. She showed him the children, little more than skin and bone, too weak to even cry. But he only laughed. If they worked harder, he said, they wouldn't be starving. Still, day after day, hour after hour, Godiva begged him to show mercy. She knelt before him in their chambers, tears streaming down her face. "I beg you," she whispered, "these people, they are yours. They believe in your justice. Will you truly let them all die?" But Leofric would not bend. Worse, her constant pleading began to anger him. "Taxes are the foundation of my power," he snapped. "Without gold, I lose everything. Do you want invaders to come and destroy all I've built?" Months passed, and Godiva's pleas grew more desperate. She couldn't sleep at night, knowing that somewhere in her land, children were going to bed hungry, and grown men were crying in shame because they couldn't feed their families. Then one day, after yet another plea to lower taxes in Coventry, Leofric finally snapped. Driven to rage by her persistence, he made an offer meant to silence her forever. "Fine," he said with a cruel smile. "I'll lift all taxes from Coventry, but only on one condition. You must ride through the town, naked, in broad daylight, from one end to the other, for all to see." He was certain she would never agree. For a noblewoman in the 11th century, public nudity wasn't just shameful. It was the end of her honor, her status, her place in society. It was worse than death. But Leofric had underestimated the power of a woman's love for her people. Godiva was silent for a long time, torn between her pride and the lives of thousands who depended on her. Finally, she lifted her head and spoke the words that stunned even Leofric. "I accept." The news spread like wildfire. The people of Coventry couldn't believe it. Was their lady truly willing to give up her honor to save them? None of them had asked for this. No one demanded such a sacrifice. And that's when something extraordinary happened. The townspeople gathered and made a decision. On the day of her ride, every window and door would be shut. No one would look. No one would watch. They would not let their savior suffer more humiliation than she already faced. The day came. Godiva stood in front of the mirror, knowing these were the final moments of the life she once knew. After today, she would be remembered forever, but at the cost of everything she was. She let down her golden hair, the only thing left to cover her body. Her servants brought a white horse to the steps. Her hands trembled as she climbed into the saddle, but her resolve did not break. The streets of Coventry were empty, silent, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Behind tightly shuttered windows, people wept and whispered prayers for the woman who had chosen shame over their suffering. Only the sound of hooves echoed in the silence. Godiva rode slowly through the town, her hair flowing in the wind. Every step the horse took was heavy with meaning, but she didn't stop. One woman's honor for the lives of thousands. For Godiva, there was no question what the right choice was. And then something happened that would become legend. There was a tailor in Coventry named Tom. Curiosity got the better of him. While the rest of the town honored their promise, he couldn't resist. He opened a shutter and looked. In that moment, he was struck blind. The townspeople believed it was divine punishment, a warning from above for disrespecting a woman who had sacrificed everything for them. From that day on, he was known as Peeping Tom, a name that would echo through history as a symbol of shame. Godiva completed her ride and returned to the castle. She had fulfilled her husband's cruel demand to the letter, and Leofric, moved by her courage, kept his word. The taxes on Coventry were lifted forever. The people rejoiced. Families could finally afford food. Children stopped dying of hunger. Craftsmen returned to their work. The city began to thrive, all because one woman chose to give up everything for them. Godiva became more than a countess. She became a mother to her people. They blessed her name, told her story to their children, and prayed for her health. She showed the world that true nobility isn't measured in gold or titles, but in the willingness to sacrifice for others. The story of Lady Godiva has endured for centuries because it reveals the best of what humanity can be. The courage of one person to give everything to save many. The power of compassion to break through even the darkest cruelty. Godiva proved that even in the bleakest times, when it seems injustice has won, there will always be those who choose to stand for the weak, and their example still inspires us today. Lady Godiva's name is now known across the world. Artists paint her, poets write of her, and ordinary people pass down her legend generation after generation, because true acts of love are never forgotten. What would you be willing to do for the sake of others? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If Lady Godiva's story touched your heart, give this video a like, subscribe for more powerful true stories, and share this one with someone who needs to hear it. We'll see you in the next episode.